Hi, I'm Morgan, aka Tempest. My pronouns are they and them, and this is Tempest Games. Here at Tempest Games, I do world building, ttrpgs, and board game design content. Yeah. So how are you? What have you been up to? I went to the shops yesterday to try and get some food because we randomly decided that we were going to actually make a Christmas dinner this year, which we never do. And discovered that it was an absolute madhouse in the shops. I couldn't believe it. The supermarket was absolutely jam-packed. Granted, this is also a funny observation. M&S was horrific. It was scary. There were too many people in there. There were senior people rubbing elbows with randos. And then I went into Aldi, and everybody was pretty calm. There weren't a lot of people there. There were plenty of turkey crowns left over. And I think I just got another follower. Hooray. Thank you, whoever you are, for following. Kilted Cajun. Oh, the Kilted Cajun has followed me. Thanks, Kirk. Great. What else? Yeah, no, it was hard to comprehend being in the shop yesterday. It was very difficult. I have a friend who works in that M&S, and I stopped to say hi to her and very quickly was just like, nope, gotta get out of here. Sorry. Love ya. Bye. But that's over and done with. So I'm quite happy for that. Quite happy for that. Let's see what else. Yeah, well, today's show is our Writing the Player's Guide to Kinde show. Kinde is a world that I've designed, which is basically restricted fantasy with a dash of post-apocalypse and strong themes of trauma. So we're going to be getting onto that. We've got, well, you may have noticed that I did a stream yesterday, or not yesterday, 2 weeks ago, and went to look for it, and it wasn't there. That's because I broke the stream. I have a new PC, so you're watching me streaming from that new PC, and it's very exciting, except I thought I had it all set up, and it turns out I didn't entirely have it set up, and I did an entire 2-hour stream without my mic on, and the music was strange. I didn't find that out. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, Kirk. It's completely and utterly irrelevant at the moment. It was so hard to even comprehend that today was Wednesday. It's a struggle. Life is a struggle right now. But we are not whining about canceled holidays. I refuse. So many people have very politely managed without dealing with their holidays already this year, and I will not complain. To be fair, I'm kind of a little bit grateful because I'm a bit of a Grinch. Not a fan of Christmas. Reading. Ooh. Who's reading what? Tell me. I'm reading the Pathfinder's Guide, or the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core book at the moment, because I'm looking at possibly playing a Pathfinder game. Yeah, that's what I'm reading. Although I did pick up some, Lois, I forget their middle name, Lois Bujold, something Bujold. The pen, how have I completely forgotten the name? Penrith and Desdemona? Got the Desdemona part right. This author writes, has written a trilogy of novels, based on this, and, they continue to write in this world based on these characters, but they're only writing novellas at this point, and we're just getting a stream of novellas. We've got 2 this year already. and I was a bit behind, so I've picked those up, and I might be reading those soon. I read The Wheel of Time. Oh, you're not gonna really... Well, I don't have a terrible opinion of Robert Jordan. In fact, I really, really love Robert Jordan's prose. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Definitely somebody that I admired back in the day who's heavily influenced me. But as I got further into the series, he just, it was too political. It was too much stuff that I wasn't interested in. But I know a lot of people are a big fan. So, yeah, that is a good question, Rick. Not a lot of things are great on the second read, especially when it comes to fantasy. So I'm interested to hear Kirk's opinion on that. 1610 by Mary Gentle. I don't know that one. Although you read a lot of books I don't know. Let's see if I can really quickly Google pen, and I'll just Penrick and Desdemona. That's what it is, and it's who's the author? Lois McMaster Bujold. That's who it is. I'll type it in. Here we go. I'll actually put a link to the I think this is the first book. Here's the Goodreads page. There. Got you into role-playing. How does that lead you into role-playing? That's a really interesting... years. Yeah, if I'd read it 10 years ago, I might have enjoyed the series more. But I think I read it... almost 20 years ago now. Yeah, almost 20 years ago. I was maybe just not in the right frame of mind for it. Of Wheel of Time? That sounds familiar. I'm not certain. I'm not sure that I could answer that question. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so because I did a whole 2 hours of stream, there's, that didn't end up getting saved anywhere. I literally just deleted it. It was such a pain in the butt. But I got a bunch of stuff done in that stream. So we'll skim over the stuff that I got done. And then we'll move on from that. And in the location section of the player's guide, I've just got splinter groups to finish up. And then after that, we're moving on to a section called Life and the World. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get through that. And let's switch over to the monitor. There we go. Just for a reminder, because I know it's Kirk's first time here on the stream, the whole series that I'm doing right now is based on this concept of a campaign Bible or a player's guide. I found this really excellent instructional on how to build something, as if it was the Bible for a television show, which is perfect and makes absolute sense to me, because that's what I'm used to doing. I'm used to writing for performance, and I've done a bit of dabbling in TV, actually. This is just an excellent guide. They got it from someone else. I believe it was actually a Wizards of the Coast staff member who had written a player's guide in this style, and then the guys from DM of None, went and they actually wrote the guide to the Bible. And that's what I'm basing it on. It's just a few pages long with different sections and descriptions of what to be in it, what's supposed to go into it. So at the moment, I'm just outlining introductions to different sections and just working on the meat of all the different sections. And as I finish sections, then I'll go back and I'll fill in the introductions. And I probably won't do the introductions on stream. Those will just get posted to my World Anvil after the sections are done, which is what I'm doing. Every time I finish a section here on the stream, we just outline it. Then during the week, I will flesh it out, make it a proper document, and then I'll post it up on the World Anvil, which is right here. And of course, I haven't logged in on this computer yet. Give me a sec, chums. Sorry. Boop, log it in. Log it in. Oh, good. It already remembers me, of course, because it's Chrome. There we go. Okay, let's find. Here we go. The new machine does not notice that I'm streaming. The new machine could care less, and that makes me very happy. The new machine barely notices anything. I think I might have overbuilt my computer. Oops. Yeah. Well, what you gonna do? Okay. And let's see. Let's go. So we're still in the first half of the guide, general information. We did some history stuff, we did some geography stuff, and now we're doing important places. I'm just using the term important places. I have a hard time even pronouncing the word gazetteer. Such a strange word. So don't use it. It's just important places. And we have done a whole bunch of stuff. So we've listed Penaven, which is our central village. It's where you start in the game. Yeah. No, I completely understand you. Technically we're supposed to be buying a house not technically, we are going to be buying a house next year, and we've desperately been trying to save money, but it got to the point that the streaming was definitely something that I wanted to do. But the laptop, I have a Dell laptop that's almost 5 years old, and that's what I was using, and it's an office laptop. It's not designed for this kind of stuff. Go ahead and post your channel on the chat, Kirk. Go ahead, plug yourself. Kirk, runs some actual plays. And do, what is that other one? The one where you do Tomb of Apocalypse, or is that over? Yeah, so Penaven, and then I've got a map here. Oh, is it not going to let you? Hang on. Rick, do you mind putting your mod hat on and going in and letting people, changing the settings so that, Kirk can post his link? Please and thank you. I don't even think. Oh, I've got some. Okay, I've got some things. No. Oh, here we go. Information settings. Trying to do this all from within OBS. Boop, 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 boop. Block hyperlinks. There we go. Oh, yeah. And there's no save, is there? No, no save. Okay, how do I get out of this now? Now that I'm in... I have no idea. Okay, what have I done? I can't see chat now. What have I done? Twitch has a bunch of new settings now. Okay, I don't... Oh. This is ridiculous. What did I do? Sorry, guys. I'm such an idiot. I have no idea what happened. Okay. I'm closing you. And I'm gonna reopen that doc chat. Yay. Okay, yeah, that fixed it. Alright. You should be able to post your link now. Oh yeah, I should have noticed that Pretzel Rocks wasn't posting links either. Okay, that's all better. Ooh, flickering torch. That's right. British Isles and Ireland represent. Thanks for popping by. There we go. That works. Okay. Back to what we were doing after I've looked like a complete fool. So we've got our one big city. We've got the big town next to our central village. We've got the region those things are in, the next region to the west. And then some description of other things to the west. In this one, we've got a description of our area to the east as well. And I can show you, because I've finally put this in up here. That's my region map that I've made. I've done it up a little bit nicer. Torch. That works. Yeah, I've done it up a little bit nicer. I took all the titles out from Draw.io and then put them back in with GIMP. So it looks a little bit nicer. It's a bit more thematic. And I can do things like, you know, make the words go follow paths and stuff like that. Let's see, go back here. And so this is what I did last time. I was writing in about West Timbland and Further. So, origins-wise, basically backstory to West Timbland is that we know that when the elves left Miminey City, they destroyed the bridge leading from the foothills to the city. And before this, the bridge was the only crossing over the River Timble. And if you look again at that map, this map, you can see there's the River Timble. There's Bridgend, which is essentially the capital town of West Timbland. And there's Miminey City up in the mountain. There was a bridge that went from here to there. And when the elves left in the Exodus, they destroyed the bridge on their way out. There's also a quarry that the elves used to use northwest of Bridgend. And then there's also a couple of villages and things, but those are all new. So Bridgend is the main town of West Timbland. It's run by a Lord Aaron, who's known for his fascination with ancient human history. He has the best library outside of New Defiance or Miminey City. And the first flight of Bridgend was contracted to rebuild the bridge to Miminey City, then to make contact with Calyrac City, which is to the west, over the Kalanoak Steppes. Hi Heather, how you doing? Minecrafting, oh good for you. If anybody has any questions about terms in here that they haven't heard before, just stop me and ask. I will do my best to try and keep track. There's definitely going to be a lot of things in here that like Torch and Kirk haven't heard of. Like I told you, it's 0, 0, ignore the middle 1, 0. That's where the house is. You can find the house easy from there. I've got Heather playing on my server. I did a realm server, and she's playing on there, and it's she's never played Minecraft before. It was hilarious. I sent her like a huge list of videos to watch to learn how to play Minecraft. The first thing she decided to do was go exploring, which, you know, you can do that. That's a thing you can do. What else? Where were we? So geography-wise, West Timbland borders the Kalanook Steppes further to the west. And there's the Timble Delta to the south. So you've got the River Timble, and then there is a delta just to its west. And the area is actually quite hilly. And the actual lands that West Timbland is on is mostly foothills leading up to the Faceless Mountains. To the Faceless Mountain, singular, actually. The Crease is the name of the whole mountain range that the continent generally uses. There is, interestingly, an elven ziggurat in one of the small, next to one of the small villages outside of Bridgend, sort of in between the Penhaven Ford, the Timble Ford? Ferry, not a ford, it's a ferry. And, good. I'm glad you've put that on your list. They're good stuff. Very quick reads, those books. The Penrick novels are quite fast to read, but they're good stuff. I can't go into details on the Elven Ziggurat in this section, in the player's guide at all, because the details are the content of an adventure. The Ziggurat takes center place in that particular adventure. To the west of West Timbland is basically just the Kalanook Steppes. It's a vast grasslands somewhere on the far western side of which is Calyrax and its own small mountain range. There's lots of folktales and scary stories about getting lost and the steppes being the home of monstrous beasts. Little is factually known about the steppes. It doesn't exist as a whole on any known map, and it only occurs in portions on the borders of maps to other places. So we're going to get down to our splinter groups. Now, I've headlined a few splinter groups that I'm sure are there, but we can possibly come up with some extra ones. So the oldest splinter group is the group of people that's generally referred to as Rebel Hole, which is both the name of the place and the people or rebels. It existed before the Exodus. They formed their own groups with the aim of freeing humankind. It was probably a kind of underground railroad and part of the original intercaste communication system. So, and because of that, it's also probably largely made up of courier and guardian castes descendants. Rebel Hole is self-sufficient. That's a thing that I know has to be made a note of when discussing each one of these groups, because when they're not self-sufficient, that becomes an issue and can contribute toward their hostility toward adventurers and other settlements. The rubble hole is actually a cave system at the bottom of the Faceless Mountains, sort of southeast edge of the Faceless Mountains. And all of the people in the splinter group used to live there prior to the Exodus. Magical about the railroad. What kind of magical stuff are you thinking? Yeah. Define magical railroad. Although that sounds exciting. Magical railroad. Like I'm imagining train cars floating, flying through space. Then we've got, now, this next one got me into having a really interesting a discussion with myself, because no one was actually watching my last stream. Little uncomfortable but interesting talk about how the breeder caste worked in Miminey City. That those types of things, bags of holding, and porkies don't exist in this part of the campaign. They probably exist in the world, but humans have no knowledge of their existence, or very little. The campaign is human-centric. The world as we know it is human-centric. For 2,500 years prior to the start of the campaign, prior to our play date 0, elves ruled the world. The elves are this homogenous, massive, colonialist society that essentially took over the world and over time managed to enslave all of the humans, obviously for their best interests. And one of the things that they quite firmly restrict throughout the world was magic, and that was also the large motivation for their the way that they interacted with other races. Thalmor, huh? Yeah, I suppose, kind of. Yeah. Super arrogant in that way. Super believing that their knowledge entitles them to tell other people why and how they're supposed to work. Elder Scrolls, Rick. It is the race of high elves. So this world, while it is very it's one of my intents for designing this world is very much to include lots of what's the word I'm looking for? Oh God, I'm definitely having a brain fart day. When the word Miminey City it sounds this way. Kind of lighthearted, fantastical. Rick, I've said this word a lot and I can't think of what it is. Help me. Rick, Heather, you guys are my backbone here. Kind of fey, lighthearted, whimsical. I got it. Whimsical. I'm sorry. This is what happens when I'm having bad days with my brain. So one of whimsy is a major theme in my world. However, it does have the implication of a bit more magic than there actually is in real life. And that is intentional. That's very much intentional. One of the other key things to remember is that when the elves left, they took all magic with them, essentially. They did leave behind, however, and not on purpose, a caste of humans who had learned some magic illegally from their elven master. And thus, magic does exist. So, I mean, you still get, all of the different kinds of classes or whatever. But things like planar magic is non-existent. And, yeah. So that definitely cancels out porkies and bags of holding. But lots of, say, nature magic, because the caste that had the magic is the farming caste, because they were farming underground in a mountain, and so magic was required in order to do so. And that elf taught the humans who weren't supposed to actually know any. And that's how we get our school of magic on this area of the world. Okay, so another splinter group, or multiple splinter groups rather, that I know for sure exists in this world is the ex-breeder caste communes. I had a bit of a talk with myself about the whole history of the breeding caste, that elves had decided that they believe quite firmly in homogeneous genetics. And also just healthy genetics in general. And so they had a breeding program meant to, homogenize the human species and make sure that the genetic pool was still healthy and diverse. Yeah, very fascist elves. And so they would take, ideal representatives of the species and put them into a breeder caste where breeding was incentivized. And then when their breeding days were over, they were sent back to their original castes, and the children of that, the products of that breeding, were dispersed throughout the cities, throughout the caste wards. More than likely they went to a caste of one of their parents. Not necessarily a familial caste, but it would have been the same caste. Yeah. So when these folks who were still working in the breeder caste wards, when they realized that they had their freedom post-Exodus. Well done, Heather. Good job. These folks felt like they had no place in human society. Obviously, they took part in the Market Square talks, but they just felt increasingly out of place and like they didn't belong. So they left and they formed into splinter groups. Unfortunately, no one had any particular expertise. They were selected as the models of their species for keeping the genetic pool diverse, as we were talking about. But they only had the skills that they would have got from their original caste up until the ages that they were picked, which is essentially the age of sexual maturity. So however much they could learn about their particular area of expertise up until the ages of, say, 10 to 13. And then that's it. That's all they knew. And obviously these people weren't picked so that they were a group of representing the knowledge of humans. So there would definitely be gaps. There would be people who were working in these castes who, I mean, there would be basically there would be whole fields of knowledge that would just not be represented by them. So, so the breeder caste is why there's only one racial phenotype. I'm not sure that phenotype is exactly the correct term to use. If you know better than I do, please let me know. The elves theorized that the species would be healthier with frequent mixing. The members of a single caste ward were free to mix with themselves as they pleased. So it's kind of understandable that since these caste wards only have, a population of 100 or so, might get a little bit inbred. Also the folks of these breeder castes tended to be largely woman identifying people, because of basically maths, reproductive maths, but definitely includes people of other identities. Originally they went off to live apart, but there has been, since the Exodus, they live apart, but there has been some influence from bandits. And the ones that remained together eventually developed into bordello communes. They're not self-sufficient yet. They're definitely on their way to it. But what's particularly interesting in this world, and I think sets it apart from other concepts similar to this, is that, the people there are some people who genuinely enjoy their sex work. But the enjoyment is still taboo because of the history of what was essentially sex slavery. So, that is I think a really strong taste of what's really going on in Kinde. That's my trauma theme coming in really strongly here. I don't want to shy away from these things because I'm not designing this world as a place to have pure, unadulterated lols. I'm particularly focused in on exploring trauma with this world. So things like that are going to come up, and I'm trying really hard to be as open and honest about these things as I can, and also fair about these things. So if I'm not using the right terminology or I'm missing a perspective, do let me know. I do want to hear your opinions. So that's what I did 2 weeks ago. Now we've got a couple more splinter groups I definitely want to hit up on. But we've got the bandit camps, and then we've got dissenter communes. So the bandit camps are basically made up of people who thought they were better off, and I'm putting this in quotation marks, organizing themselves. And I've got the US dictionary on here, don't I? I need to sort that out. That essentially means that they're basically anarchists. And I don't want to use the term libertarian because while it vaguely fits, I think in order to really be libertarian, you have to have a rather developed sense of government, and I don't think these people would. Then the dissenter communes are essentially people who thought there were better ways of life than what the majority decided during the market square talks. So they were part of the discussions. They were large enough as a group to identify with each other's points of view, but it wasn't the same idea as what resulted in the first flights and the regions and general organization of the area. By anarchists, no internal hierarchy. That's a really good point. There's definitely some who have hierarchy. So what would you call, if you know this off the top of your head, Torch, what would you call government that's based on the strongest? Not merit so much as like strength and physical strength. Demonstrable strength. I'm sure I could look this up if you don't know what it is. I suppose that would probably best describe what some of the bandits are. Now, if we go to the North Flats... Oh, it's not going to be in that section, is it? East Timbland and Further. One of the central lorddoms. All the regions here are called lorddoms because they were organized and led by a single lord. The North Flats area, the first flight went out in order to build river trade and culture. Oligarchy, isn't that... Oh, yeah, because that's military. No, that makes sense. Mark's a smarty pants. I'll have to... Yeah. Cratocracy? Ooh. That's okay, I have to look this stuff up now. Okay. This is a society's view of right or wrong is determined by those in power. Yeah. Montague defined based on Greek, meaning strong. So yeah, I would definitely lean towards this over oligarchy. Sorry to Mark. But oligarchy suggests military structure. Yeah. Credo of totalitarian regimes, yeah. Personal ideas of the good, only those strong enough to overcome obstacles and enemies can put their ideas into effect and spread. Yeah, this seems to describe exactly what I'm thinking about. Okay. Oh, there we go. So, the first flight was sent to the North Flats to establish Hartford and to build river trade, to build culture. And then sometime between the first and second Lord's moots. Okay. What makes you think that? It doesn't have any flags. It's in the talk page. That's right, Mark. Thank you anyway. don't see anything on the talk page. Nominated for deletion. To merge into, right, okay, that's the critocracy page. Gotcha. Philosophy. Yeah. Let's see. There's a site that I was using to look at different forms of government. Let's see if we can go into my theory section and oh, maybe it was just Wikipedia. I'm sure there was a website on type of governments that I got some things from. But no, that was definitely the page where I was getting them. Let's list of forms of government. Democracy, autocracy, yeah, totalitarian democracy, critarchy, yeah, critocracy might be, yeah, this leads back to that page again as well. See, this is, to me, is one of the most fun things about world building is just finding out random stuff like this. You have a question that you want to put words into words, and just all the wonderful Googling. Nation states. It looks like it's sort of equally used to refer to both types of things. Yeah, okay, well. We'll go on using the word critocracy, I think. It seems largely the appropriate descriptor. That would very much describe Hartford now. Sometime between the first and second Lords' Moots, which is a gathering of the Lords that happens every 8 years, the settlement of Hartford was overtaken by a bandit splinter group, and they essentially demanded recognition within the, I hesitate to say government, it's very overall, Miminey City in the Eight Lorddoms is a very horizontal governmental structure. But everyone is sort of free to organize their own things within that structure how they choose. So the bandits who took over Hartford demanded recognition from the Lord's Moot, essentially. And now, currently, it's, where... how many Lord's Moots are we into now? It's the year 47. And we got the Lord's Moots written on here. No. Okay, so the first flight... Where's the first flight? Second Square Mart talks... Right. This is the first flight right here. Was in 25 SE. That stands for Since Exodus. And 8 years after that was the first Lord's Moot. So 33 SE. And 8 years after that was the second Lord's Moot. 41 SE. So it's been 5 years since that Lord's Moot, and since the bandits are more or less officially recognized by the Lord's Moot. Lord's Moot being the term that is also describes the collection of people who operate the Lord's Moot, and as well as the event itself. Yeah, so we're getting close to our 3rd Lord's Moot, so there hasn't been one since then. The ones who stayed, actually no, it's a really good, I should add that in here. Cretocracy. Might is right. Okay. Just for future reference. The ones that stayed bandit camps, though, I would say maybe, just for my notes purposes, I'm going to write somewhere between anarchy and cretocracy. It's definitely maybe more volatile, less organized. There are probably some people who think that any form of authority is bad for their health. And so then in that way, the people who remain in camps are definitely anarchist. What else about the bandit camps, folks? Not self-sufficient. They didn't organize according to the knowledge that was available, or to ability to survive, we'll say. Their economy is largely based on banditry, essentially. That's what makes them bandits, is the fact that they prey on weaker people, on villages and travelers and adventurers and the like. So in that sense, I mean, they're the classic bandits, classic fantasy bandits. I still don't, at this point, know any specific locations of bandit camps. I think that's more or less going to come out in the gameplay through some, random tables and the like. Everyone who plays in this world can have their bandit camps be in different places, but the idea is that we definitely know they exist, and if we're writing random tables for, say, wilderness travel, or even just road travel in general, bandit camps are going to play heavily on those tables. So I think for the sake of the player's guide, we'll say that specific locations are unknown. Okay. Let's look at dissenter communes. So, our government that we're working with here... Oh, that's a very good point, Kirk. Nomadic bandits. Yeah. That's good. That's very good. Okay. So, alright, let's go back to our theory bits, talking about forms of government. So, just so we get an idea of what our starting point is when talking about dissenters. Let's pop these open. So our main government, our larger government, so when we're talking about using the phrase Miminey City and the Eight Lorddoms, we're talking about what's essentially an anocracy, which is somewhere between democracy and dictatorship. Or have I got that the wrong way around? Yeah, it's gosh, it's been a while since I was developing this stuff. Hang on a sec. Collective identity, institutional social relations. Yeah. Okay. Mutual aid. Right. Okay. So we've got a couple of levels here. We've got Miminey City and the Eight Lorddoms as literal organizations. They're separate, all on their own. Then we've got the sort of agreements and contracts, which essentially function as the government that the glue that holds all of these places together. And that is run by the triad, which are essentially, it's a group of polities. So it's a group of people who have a collective identity organized by some form of institutionalized social relations and have a capacity to mobilize resources. So, I mean, eventually they're probably going to become really, you know, further down the line, hundreds of years, they will probably evolve into what we know of as like medieval and Renaissance guilds. But at the moment, they're brand spanking new, and they're still deciding what their organization method is and who's in charge and how to get between things. So things are still shifting a lot. Yes, Rick does love guilds, doesn't he? So at the moment, they're probably better described as a polity. And in the triad, you've got the Farmers Guild. Remember, that's the people who actually have magic in this world. Then you've got the Assembly of Stewards and Guardians. That's our, you know, military group. That is our sort of bureaucrats and judges and guards and the like. Then your third one is the Merchants Guild. And the Merchants Guild is exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, but also includes... Wait, did I actually, in the end, call it the Merchants Guild? Or am I forgetting what I did? Yeah, what is... It's just the map. Okay. Maybe it's in my theory, right? Is it in my theory? Aptitude test, ocean. Huh. Oh, sure there is. No. So there we talk about the triad again. Where do I have a page? I know I have a page here somewhere that's basically the triad. Oh, I'm doing real good today. Let's look at my old content. I had this up on World Anvil when I was originally designing. Well, no, the old stuff is exactly what I'm fighting against here, so maybe I shouldn't look at that. Yeah, no, that's not what I want. Okay, this is my lore content. That's just talking about Nillenhold. That's going into High River. Yeah, okay. I did eventually go through and just do Control F and replaced all mentions of Penhaven with High River. I feel really bad about that. I quite enjoyed the name Penhaven. I thought it was quite I was quite proud of myself for coming up with a name that was... No, there's nothing in here. That was so flavorful. Stealing young people because they convince younger people who don't feel they fit into their groups into joining them. Talk to me. Why would these young people not feel like they fit in? I mean, when we think of young people, we think of rebellion, don't we? So but the question is there anything really solid for young people to rebel against? And another issue that may come into this is epigenetics, genetic trauma. We're talking about the children of slaves. Now, I mean, I don't have any experience with the first generation of descendants from slaves, but I've lived among the first generation descendants of Holocaust survivors. And in my experience, we're talking about, it's kind of like, it's more fear. Like they're always afraid. To me, a person who's really rebellious is someone who has perhaps less fear than they ought to. Less fear than their forebears, than their parents. There's definitely a lot to be afraid of. I think in this sense, there's a lot of resemblance to Holocaust survivors in that the oppressing force, the oppressive body is gone but in no way forgotten, and there is always the lingering chance that it will come back again. Whereas when we're talking about survivors of slavery, they were living amongst their oppressors and still are. And so their fear as an entity was not so much a thing as literal continued oppression and, I mean, obviously fear. But I wouldn't call it the name of the thing. The name of the thing in that case is still oppression. Still dehumanization. What do you got? Every group has a purpose and a way of life. Always has people who feel there is more to life than the traditions and way of life they were taught. It's the way it has to be. No, I completely agree with you. Absolutely. But what I'm considering here is that there aren't any traditions. The traditions of these people is slavery, is what their elven masters, I hate that phrase, that is, their traditions are what their elven masters gave to them. And so in this world, yeah, less than 50 years away. They've gone, they've disappeared. And so they're all currently developing new traditions, new rules, new things to impose on young people. So there's definitely, I think, a great sense of freedom in everyone, particularly in the generation who were alive during the occupation, and that's what it's called, the Elven occupation. Possibly this is one of the prevailing cultural ideologies, or one of the ideologies that's currently developing right now, is that of freedom. I personally remember from my experience of living and being raised by living with and being raised by narcissists, being in a relationship with a narcissist. When I got outside of those things, the euphoric sense of freedom was just overwhelming. Obviously, it was not so pervasive in my life that it's something that I would pass on, or would I pass that on to children? That's actually a really good question. I'm not having children. I have no interest in that. But to a younger generation, would I put an effort into saying, honor your personal freedom? Hell yes, I would. Absolutely. Don't let someone else hem you in. Petrified. Oh no, they're definitely petrified the elves will come back. I think all of them. Would the newest generation be especially petrified? Maybe the surviving generation put so much effort into how would you phrase that? Yeah, I think we're getting somewhere with this. So it's more that these young people's parents told so many ghost stories about the elves, and the fact that these people aren't doing, from the children's perspective, everything they can to become a military organization capable of fighting the elves off, because obviously one of the horrible things about the elves is there's just so many numbers. There's so many of them. That I think that would actually lead young people into working with the bandits more than it would that, relying on rebellion as bait. So, I mean, that would definitely. So, numbers bolstered by new generations of free humans who think we should think more should be done to prepare to fight off the return of the elves, and shall we say the inevitable return of the elves? Yeah, it would definitely be something that they couldn't sustain on their own. But then we've also got, say, because the bandits have a close relationship with the, we'll just call them the Bordello communes specifically, because I suppose not all of the communes are, all of the ex-breeder caste communes are heavily Bordello castes. or bordello communes, but the bandit camps have a close relationship with the bordello communes. And so likely to also be a source of more numbers. More than likely, there's a kind of agreement. I'm gonna do what I did last time and try to get this further up the page so y'all don't have to be looking at the bottom all the time. Agreement. No. Arrangements made with bandits for protection from other bandits. Yeah. Okay. Because more than likely, if there's a bordello commune that had really close relations with the groups of bandits that took over Hartford, they probably would have moved into Hartford. But more than likely, Hartford has bordellos. Yeah, quite likely. More than likely, yeah. I imagine there's at least one bandit group which has turned it into a protection racket for sure. But I think that's possibly a level of world building that's a little bit too microscopic for this guide at the moment. But yeah, that's for sure, definitely. Yeah. Okay. See, with these dissenter communes, I just keep thinking, like, what significant ways would people disagree with the triad, with Miminey City, and the first flights? The first flight, singular. The first flight is, by the way, the original group of humans that left in 25 SE to establish the Eight Lorddoms. They're referred to as the First Flight. They have a contract with their lords, who have a contract with Miminey City, to establish these settlements in return for, mutual care and support. It was this idea of just mutual aid as an organization theory. So the individual triad members are polities. You might describe the form of government of Miminey City and the Eight Lorddoms as a whole as a particracy. I don't like the way particracy, because essentially it's a government run by parties, multiple parties. In this case, 3 who are referred to as the triad. The lorddoms themselves are more of what's called an anocracy, which is part democracy, part dictatorship. It's a lord who has their own group of people that they think are important for running things, and then everyone else. And, I wouldn't call it a serfdom, because it's much more democratic than that. In the sense that, and they all tend to be this way. It's not just one of them. That's the point of the Lord's Moot, so that these lords go away, they spend 8 years running their own things and trying things out to make things work, and then they all get back together after 8 years, and then they discuss and they say, well, I tried this and it worked this way. So each of them, they tend to work things out in similar fashions, but some of them, try something a little bit different. Some of them have purposes. Part of their contract as the first flight to that lorddom is different enough that it leads to a different type of running things. Again, we're talking about, what is it, 22 years since the first flight, so there isn't a lot that has really solidified. So how would people disagree strongly enough that they would form an identity around this that would cause them to that would give that idea its own gravity and create a group of people who share that identity? So the elves, I think they're very traditional. It's probably a meritocracy. They're very science led, or magic as well. Yeah, essentially. An assemblage to distill systems of self-governance. Yeah, that makes some sense. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine there's some level of self-governance among themselves as well. So, for instance, if there's any problems with relations between one lorddom and another, then they can bring their grievances to the Lord's Moot. And then from there, if they decide that, if the Lord's Moot decides something needs to be done, then they'll bring them to Miminey City in order to carry out some kind of justice or something. So each lorddom has its own smaller group of the assembly, and more than likely there is a head steward. Like every lorddom has a head steward who is probably going to go along with the lord of that lorddom to the Lord's Moot, and it's those group of 8 stewards who make any kind of judgments. So everyone is probably self-organized in a way that there's a level of escalation similar to that what you find in most modern governments. There's local judgment, and then if nothing is worked out perfectly with that, or if someone wants to appeal a local judgment, then they'll bring it up a step higher and a step higher and a step higher. There is an organization to the level where everyone makes their judgments in exactly the same way. Yeah. So the elves are a meritocracy. 2,500 years ago, they came to the human lands and they used diplomacy, I'm sure, to develop a relationship with the humans that allowed them to develop that relationship into one resembling control. And then over time, they took that control and they run amok with it until 2,500 years later, you've got an oppressive society in which humans live separately from elves. Humans don't just live separately from elves, they live separately from each other. They live in caste wards, which are defined by microscopic skills that really only serve the purposes of elven society. Knowledge is kept from them maybe there's a group of people who still think that's how they should live. That's an interesting thought. People who think humans should live the way elves designed for them to live. That implies that they believe that humans... this is essential to it, and this provides some really interesting conflict, because while our main society is trying to learn more about magic and share knowledge, these folks firmly believe that magic is dangerous in the hands of humans. I'm gonna phrase it that way. What other sorts of things would the elves have had to convince humans of to get them to live peaceably in these caste wards without magic? Oh, yeah. Definitely a thing. I imagine they all kind of live in a kind of poverty that is analogous to just waiting for the elves to return. In the way that children who have been abandoned by their parents, neglected for years and abandoned by their parents, they're frequently found living in their own filth, waiting for the parents to arrive, not having realized that they've been abandoned. So they believe the elves' absence is temporary / intentional. / has meaning. / is a test. They would have, these types of people, they would have wanted to remain in the city, in their caste wards. So, but obviously since the majority of people stayed in the city, they would not have been able to continue living the way that they had been living during the occupation. Would they have left? Maybe the people of Miminey City gave them space to live in the city. So I think they live in a sectioned off area. Well, thanks for coming by, Kirk. Enjoy your reading and have a good night. And if I don't speak to you again, have a Merry Christmas. And I'll chat with you later. Okay, so they live in a sectioned off area of Miminey City, given to them by the Triad, where they live without interference. They have further subdivided these caste wards so they can what? Ooh, I want to use, instead of saying sectioned off, I want to use the word reserved. Because that has weight to it. So it's probably referred to as let's do a little subheading here. No, we're just gonna bold it. We're gonna call it the... What is this action? Let's just say the Elven Apologist Reservation. Yeah. So they further subdivided these caste wards so they can live more closely to how the elves designed. Yeah, okay. Right. Alright, what other group can we think of? We haven't got a lot of time left for tonight, but you can at least name another group. What other ways would you disagree with this? So you've got, like, the anarchists basically just became bandits. And the people who felt left out are there people who felt left out, not specifically for their caste culture? Maybe apologist is the wrong word. Apologist as in religious context. Person who offers an argument in defense of something controversial. Does that still need redefining, maybe? Or re-describing? What do you think, Torch? Oh. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'll put a note in there. name they call themselves. And we can keep that on the back burner. If you come up with something, let me know. But they definitely wouldn't be called the Agent Apollo's Reservation. However, in the player's guide, keeping in mind that our central point of view is the majority human population, the population that forms the entity known as Miminey City and the Eight Lorddoms, we would definitely go with the name that they use for these folks. But you're right, they wouldn't use that name. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so people who feel left out. How does this society leave people out? Maybe they just call themselves the Loyalists. That's not a bad thought. That's a really good thought. I mean, it works. Maybe some of them call themselves Loyalists, or maybe they're referred to sarcastically as the Loyalists, but I think in their minds they're not being loyal, they're being correct. They're living the way humans ought to live in order to serve their best purpose in the world and to be of least danger to everyone else. It's almost respectful. Correct is a word that's giving me good vibes here. The correctists, just the correct, full stop. The elves were meritocracists. Yeah. I would not call them a democracy. More like how else? What are let's hang on a second. Let's go look at my handy list of forms of government again. And because there's more to it than just meritocracy, that doesn't describe exactly the different ways that they function. Believers, yeah, that might be. Although I'm worried that if we use the term believers, that's going to become a meme, and everyone is just going to say believers because of Justin Bieber. But maybe that's my age. I don't know. Let's see. Faithful. regions. No, they have absolutely no illusions of ruling. I don't think that fits. That would be way too grand for what their idea is of what is correct for humans. Definitely not to be in charge. I mean, why would they be waiting for the elves if they thought they were fine in charge? The faithful? Autocracy, liberal democracy. Thinking in terms of oh, Heather, you can see here, actually, you can tell Mark, if he's still listening, that cratocracy is actually on a list of types of oligarchy. So, still totally works. Autocracy, it's republic. That's the word I'm talking about. I'm looking into. So it's a type. Elven society is probably a type of republic that is meritocratic. Yep. They wouldn't have what do you call them? Aristocracy? Aristocrats? Aristocracy. They wouldn't have an aristocracy. Because they would firmly believe that everyone makes their own. Yeah, no, Republicans won't work. That everyone makes their own reputation. That your reputation doesn't pass on from father to son, mother to daughter. Because they're very, it's all about science to them. But obviously, I think that, so in terms of being a republic, the different, it's more like different scientific bodies representing the people. So if you're some kind of biologist, there would be a biological society that would represent your interests in Elven society as a whole. Keepers. Interesting. Let's do some thesaurusing. This is always occurs when we're naming things. Correct. This is what I'm going to look at. I'm going to look at, see if this comes up with anything proper, precise, legitimate, factual, equitable, appropriate. Now, this is the kind of thing, if we're talking about some kind of British themed dystopia, you'd string a bunch of these words together in order to come up with the name, the name that a fascist society calls itself. That would definitely be the way to do it. I mean, they are definitely a fascist society. Strict, true, proper. True. Truists? Ooh. Ooh. What is correctists? Truists. True sounds more honorable. True sounds more good than correct does. They would obviously have an interest in being good, so... Truists. Yeah, okay. I think we're gonna go with that. Yeah, I'm digging that for now. Okay, well, let's actually wrap up. I think we're good there. That's fine that we didn't get on with stuff. I like interacting with the chat always ends up taking things a little bit longer, but that's because we all had some really great interesting ideas, and we had to think through them. And that's fabulous. That's part of the reason I don't do this by myself. Jingoistic. Oh, what a word. Extreme patriotism, especially in the form of aggressive or warlike foreign policy. I want to know the etymology of that. I feel like that is heavily weighted towards human culture. Let's see what Cambridge has to say about it. The extreme belief that your own country is always best, often shown in enthusiastic support for a war against another country. That is a very different definition to the other one, which suggests to me that there's some really heavy connotational stuff going on there. Jingoism is condemned in the Song of the New Pied Piper. Yeah. Definitely American culture. I don't have any... I wish Oxford Dictionary hadn't gone so heavily behind a paywall. Because they were always good for looking at mentions of the word by jingo. Isn't that like racist in some way? Result of the phrase by jingo, which appeared in the refrain of a popular song. We don't want to fight yet by jingo. If we do, we've got the ships, we've got the men and the money too. Yeah. Nationalism, chauvinism, patriotism. Not a bad shout, just not quite the right flavor, I think. I think jingoism is a really heavily flavored word, so it would have to fit perfectly if it were to work. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, that's what we got. Let's see. I didn't make a Reddit post today. That's fine. That's good. I'll have a think between this stream and the next one about like maybe there's one or two other specific types of communes or dissenter groups that needs to be. Yeah, I'm really liking Truist as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for Torch and Kirk who's gone, who are here for the first time. And thank you for my regulars coming back, Rick and Heather. Definitely lean on those guys heavily. They're fantastic. Yeah, I don't know what to say because I hadn't actually mentally prepared myself for bookending and all of that neat stuff. So we're just gonna say thank you one more time. And everybody have a good night. Bye.